In 1997, scientists listening to the Pacific Ocean recorded a sound that should not have existed. It was powerful enough to be detected by multiple underwater sensors separated by thousands of kilometers. It was not a whale call, not a ship, not a submarine, and not a known earthquake. What made the recording truly unsettling was the way it sounded. The signal rose in frequency over several seconds, almost like a gigantic living thing calling through the dark. For a brief moment, even trained researchers had to consider a possibility that sounded absurd. What if something huge, something still unknown to science, was moving somewhere in the deep ocean? They gave the sound a simple name, the bloop. And even though scientists now have a likely explanation, the recording still leaves behind the same uneasy feeling it created the first time it was heard. Because the bloop is not just a strange sound, it is a reminder of how little of the ocean we truly understand. To understand why the bloop caused so much fascination, you have to start long before 1997. During the Cold War, the United States built an enormous underwater listening system designed to detect Soviet submarines before they could approach American territory. This network used underwater microphones called hydrophones. Unlike microphones on land, hydrophones were built to listen to a world hidden beneath the surface, a world where sound behaves very differently. In the ocean, sound travels with incredible efficiency. Because of pressure, temperature, and the structure of the water itself, certain layers of the ocean allow sound waves to travel vast distances with surprisingly little loss of energy. A noise made in one part of the sea can sometimes be detected thousands of kilometers away. That means the deep ocean is not silent at all. It is full of voices. Whale songs echo over enormous distances. Ice fractures groan and crack. Underwater earthquakes send low-frequency vibrations through the seabed. Storms, ship engines, and shifting ice all contribute to a constant hidden soundtrack. At first, these hydrophone systems existed for military purposes, but over time, they became valuable scientific tools as well. Researchers realized they could use them to study marine life, geological activity, and changes in the polar regions. By the 1990s, scientists had heard a huge range of sounds from the underwater world. They knew the signatures of blue whales, fin whales, submarines, underwater volcanic events, and the powerful cracking of ice sheets. They had built up a kind of acoustic library of the planet's underwater behavior. That is what made the bloop so strange. It did not fit neatly into that library. The people who analyzed it were not amateurs hearing something unfamiliar for the first time. They were experts used to sorting signals into patterns. They knew what ordinary anomalies looked like. They knew how equipment glitches behaved, and yet this recording forced them to pause. When the signal appeared in 1997, it was picked up by multiple hydrophones across the Pacific. That immediately ruled out the idea that it was some tiny local disturbance or a random error in one device. Whatever produced the sound had to be extremely strong. It had traveled through an enormous stretch of ocean and still remained clear enough to be recorded. Researchers began examining the waveform. Instead of looking like a single burst or a chaotic crash, the sound gradually increased in frequency over several seconds. That pattern caught attention right away. Many natural impacts and explosions behaved differently. This felt almost structured, almost intentional. To some listeners, it sounded eerily biological, like a giant call from an enormous animal somewhere in the darkness. That possibility was both exciting and troubling. The ocean is home to the largest animals that have ever lived. Blue whales can grow longer than many buses and produce calls that carry across great distances. But even compared to known whale vocalizations, the bloop seemed unusually powerful. If it had been biological, then whatever produced it might have been larger or stranger than any known marine creature. That idea alone was enough to guarantee that the recording would spread far beyond scientific circles. Still, scientists are usually cautious for a reason. A sound being mysterious does not mean it is supernatural, and sounding biological does not mean it came from an animal. Nature often creates patterns that seem almost designed. Wind can make buildings sing. Rocks can produce tones. Ice can groan like machinery. The ocean especially can create strange acoustic illusions. So while the bloop inspired dramatic speculation, researchers kept looking for explanations that fit known physics. As news of the bloop spread, the mystery began to evolve. Outside scientific communities, people started adding their own interpretations. The internet loved the story. The idea of a gigantic unseen creature in the deep ocean was too powerful to resist. Some connected it to sea monster legends that have existed for centuries. Others compared it to fictional creatures from horror literature, especially because the Pacific Ocean contains trenches and abyssal zones so remote that they feel almost alien. That reaction makes sense when you think about what the deep ocean represents in the human mind. We have sent machines to Mars. We have photographed galaxies millions of light years away. Yet large parts of our own ocean floor remain poorly mapped and rarely observed. There are regions so deep, dark, and pressurized that sending humans there is nearly impossible. Strange creatures already live there. Animals with transparent skin, bioluminescent organs, gigantic jaws, and bodies that look less like ordinary life and more like experiments in another world. When people hear that scientists recorded an unexplained sound in the abyss, their imagination immediately fills the gap. But imagination is not evidence. Researchers continued comparing the bloop to known categories of underwater sound. Could it have come from volcanic activity? Could it have been a submarine event? Could it be linked to movement in the seafloor? Each possibility had problems. The signal did not cleanly match the usual profile of a volcanic eruption or a standard tectonic event. It also did not behave like the sound signatures associated with human-made vessels. That left another candidate that had been heard before, but not always fully appreciated by the public. Ice. Massive ice structures can create astonishingly powerful noises when they crack, grind, or shift underwater. In polar regions, gigantic pieces of ice can fracture with enough force to send low-frequency sound across immense distances. And because those sounds travel through a complex ocean environment, they can arrive at sensors in ways that feel strange, stretched, or almost organic. Over time, this explanation became stronger. Scientists studying Antarctic ice movements found that large ice quakes and iceberg fractures could generate sounds surprisingly similar to the bloop. When huge masses of ice crack apart, scrape against one another, or break free under stress, they can release enormous amounts of acoustic energy. To someone hearing only the recording, stripped away from the context of ice dynamics, the result can sound mysterious and even alive. This does not make the bloop less interesting. In some ways, it makes it more impressive. The idea that shifting ice in the Southern Ocean could create a sound so powerful that it would be heard across huge portions of the Pacific tells you something important about the scale of our planet. Nature does not need monsters to be dramatic. The Earth itself is capable of producing noises so large and strange that they resemble fiction. Most researchers today consider an Antarctic ice source the most likely explanation. It fits the strength of the signal, the oceanic environment, and the broader understanding of how low-frequency sounds travel underwater. It also explains why the recording seemed unusual without requiring any unknown species or hidden technology. The bloop was probably not a creature. It was probably not a secret machine. It was likely a natural event created by the movement of massive polar ice. And yet, the reason this story survived is not because the explanation is weak. It survived because the emotional effect of the recording remains powerful. When people first hear the bloop, they do not imagine ice. They imagine depth, darkness, distance, and something too large to see. The human brain reacts to the sound before logic catches up. It hears possibility before it hears science. That is why the bloop continues to appear in documentaries, discussion forums, and mystery videos. It sits in a perfect space between explanation and atmosphere. Maybe that is why the bloop still matters. Not because it proves the existence of some hidden ocean beast, but because it captures a truth that is easy to forget. The ocean is not just a setting on a map. It is a vast, active, living system that still keeps many of its secrets. More than 70% of Earth is covered by water, and much of the deep sea remains unexplored. We have not catalogued every creature. We have not mapped every trench in detail. We have not heard every sound the planet is capable of making. So even if the bloop was caused by cracking Antarctic ice, the unease it creates is still honest. It comes from the knowledge that there are places on this world where human beings are still mostly outsiders. Places so large, dark, and difficult to reach that mystery is not a fantasy there. It is the default state. The bloop may be one solved mystery, or mostly solved at least, but it points toward a much larger one. How many other sounds move through the deep ocean right now, unheard by us? How many signals have come and gone without anyone listening? And if we keep listening long enough, what else might the sea reveal? This was Unknown Archive, File 001, The Bloop.